He rejected me the first time. He just doesn't know he's about to do it again. I knew it the moment I walked back into his great hall after 5 years gone, carrying a healer's basket and a name that was not mine. He looked straight through me, the way a man looks through a servant, through a stranger, through anyone who is not the woman he has spent half a decade tearing the north apart to find. He did not know that woman was holding his lemon balm and willow bark and watching him fail to recognise her. I was 25 that winter, a woman grown twice over by pack law, and I had buried the girl who once stood at his bonding ceremony in a shallow grave somewhere on the road south. Wren, they called me here. Wren the apprentice. Quiet, good with a poultice, came up from the coast packs when old Mistress Orla's hands began to shake. No one questioned it. A healer is furniture in a king's house. You only notice furniture when it's gone. I had not come back for him. I want that understood, because everything that followed will try to make a liar of me. And I was telling the truth that first night. I came back because Mistress Orla was dying and she had asked for me, and because the curse that broke my life in half had been waiting 5 years for me to be brave enough to come and break it back. The Alpha King sat at the head of the hall, the way iron sits in a forge, heavy, dark, holding heat it would not release. Halvar of the Iron Territories. The strongest wolf alive, they still said, though I thought the man on that throne looked like something the strength had outlived. Hollow at the temples, a stillness in him that the court mistook for power, and I recognised, with a small, cold drop in my stomach, as grief. There was an empty chair beside his, carved with running wolves. No one sat in it. No one had, the kitchen girls whispered, in 5 years. I set down my basket and got to work, and I did not look at the chair. And I told myself the not looking was nothing. Mistress Orla's quarters smelled of beeswax and old paper. She caught my wrist with a grip like dried vine the first night I tended her. "You came," she breathed. "Marin." My true name in her mouth was a struck bell. I had not heard it spoken aloud since the night he cut the cord. "Wren," I corrected, gentle, glancing at the door. Her eyes were milky, but they found mine. "He's been looking for you," she said. "The whole north knows it. He doesn't." I changed the cloth on her brow and said nothing, which is a skill I had spent 5 years acquiring. Here is the thing I had carried for 5 years and told no one, because there was no one, and because saying it would have made it true twice. At the ceremony, where the king of the Iron Territories was meant to bind himself to the fated mate his wolf had chosen, he had taken the bonding cord from the priest's hands, looked at me across the firelit hall full of his entire kingdom, and cut it. Not refused it, cut it. Drew a blade and severed the silver thread before the final knot, in front of every noble house in the north, and turned his back and walked out. A rejected bond is supposed to kill the weaker wolf. I was the weaker wolf. I should have died on that floor. I didn't. I crawled out a side door instead, and I lived, which the priests said was impossible. And I have spent 5 years learning enough of the old craft to understand why. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That night, kneeling by Mistress Orla's bed, all I knew was the question I had carried like a stone in my shoe down every road since. Not, will I survive it? I had survived it. But why did he cut the cord instead of simply letting it lie? A man who does not want you does not need a blade. He only needs to do nothing. That was the gap I could not close. That was why I had really come back. I will admit it now, even if I would not admit it then. The second night, he came to the healer's quarters. I heard him before I saw him, the hall going quiet the way a forest goes quiet, all the small sounds ducking. Then he was in the doorway, too large for it, and his eyes went past me to the old woman on the bed, and his whole face changed into something almost human. Mistress Orla raised me, he told the room, which did not need telling. He crossed to her. He did not look at me. How does she fare? The fever's turned, I said, and busied my hands. She'll wake before the moon's full again. He went still. I have thought a great deal since about that stillness. At the time, I thought I had said something wrong. He stood over the bed of the woman who'd mothered him, and he did not look at the dying woman at all anymore. He looked at the back of my neck, where I had bent over my work, and I felt it the way you feel a window left open in winter, a cold attention, a draught of something. Your voice, he said. My hands did not shake. I have that to be proud of, at least. My lord? A long pause where the next word should have been. His wolf was awake in him. I could feel it pressing at the bond's old ragged edge, the one everyone but me believed was healed clean. He doesn't know, I told myself. His wolf knows. He does not. The cord he cut had severed the man from the truth as neatly as it severed me from the floor. Nothing, he said at last. You remind me of someone. I have one of those faces. The smallest sound came out of him. It took me a moment to understand it had been a laugh, or the ruin of one. He left without finishing whatever he had come to say, and I stood in the dark a long while afterward, with my heart doing something I had ordered it years ago to stop doing. He came to the library the next afternoon, which kings do not do. Mistress Orla kept her books in a long room off the king's study, and I'd been left to sort them while she slept. To pull the herbals from the histories, the useful from the merely old. I was halfway up a ladder with my arms full of a century of someone's marginalia when I heard the door and felt the whole room change temperature. You are not the one I expected to find up there, the king said. Mistress Orla is sleeping, my lord. I am to mend her shelves while she does. I came down a rung. Was there a book? There was a pause, exactly long enough for me to understand he had not, in fact, come for a book, and to watch him understand it at the same moment. A herbal, he said, recovering. Bound in grey. She used to read me out of it when I was small enough to be read to. He looked at the shelves as though they might volunteer it. I find I cannot recall a single word of it now, only that she read it. I found it for him in a quarter hour. He could have sent a steward. We both knew it. Neither of us said it. When I came down the ladder, the stack in my arms shifted and slid, and before I had finished deciding whether to drop it or fall with it, he had crossed the whole length of that room and put one hand beneath the books to steady them, near enough that I could have counted the grey at his temple, 3 full paces closer than a king has any reason to stand to an apprentice he does not know. He went still. So did I. The books sat safe between us, ridiculous, the only thing either of us was willing to look at. My lord moves quickly, I observed, for a man who claims to have forgotten a book. He took his hand back as though the herbals had bitten it. Something crossed his face, not quite alarm, more the look of a man checking his own pockets for a thing he was certain he had a moment ago. I did not... He stopped. He frowned down at his own hand. I do not know why I did that. I did. I had felt his wolf reach across that room a full breath before his feet caught up to it. But the kitchen boy stacking kindling in the doorway had seen the whole of it. the king of the Iron Territories bolting across a library to rescue a servant's armful of mildewed leaves. And by supper, I knew, the entire Undercroft would have the tale. I held out the grey-bound herbal. He took it and did not open it. He held it the way men hold things they have decided to keep. "Thank you, Wren," he said, and left with a book he had not come for, walking at a pace that was trying very hard to look unhurried. I went back up the ladder. I told myself the climbing was so that he would not see my face. I found the cord 3 days later. I was not snooping. I will defend that to my last breath, even though no one believes it. Mistress Orla had sent me to his study for a particular root she kept in his cabinet. She'd tended the king's own ailments for years and kept her stores in his rooms, near the fire, where the damp wouldn't reach them. I went in expecting bottles. I found, in a drawer that did not lock, beneath a folded square of grey wool, a length of silver cord, severed clean at one end. My cord, the one he cut. He had kept it. 5 years. Through 5 years of searching, of tearing apart the roads of the north, he had kept the proof of the thing he'd done, folded in wool like a relic. I was still holding it when the door opened. Lady Ingrid found me there, and I understood at once that of all the people in that fortress, she was the one who had never stopped looking at faces. She was beautiful the way a frost is beautiful, clean, total, killing. The court had her halfway to Luna already. The advisers spoke of the alliance her bloodline would bring, and the empty carved chair, they murmured, would not stay empty forever. She came into the room like she owned the air in it. "The healer's apprentice," she said, "in the king's private study, holding the king's private grief." Her eyes moved over me, slow, and I watched her arrive somewhere. "You have a coastal look." They said the girl from the ceremony was a coastal nobody. "I came up from the coast packs a month ago, my lady." "Did you?" She smiled. It did not reach anything. What a long way to come to hold a piece of string. I put the cord back in its wool. My hands were steady. I have said that already. I keep saying it because it is the only thing I had. "Mistress Orla sent me for valerian root, my lady. I'll trouble you no further." She let me pass. She watched me go. And at the door she said, light as snowfall, "I do hope the old woman recovers. It would be a shame if her medicines did not agree with her." 2 days later, Mistress Orla's fever came roaring back, worse than before, and her lips went blue at the edges, and I tasted the tincture I had not made that someone had left in my place on the shelf, and under the valerian, faint and bitter and unmistakable, the cold mineral note of crushed wolfsbane. Wolfsbane. In a healer's store, in a dose meant to look like a tired apprentice's mistake. It nearly worked. I will tell you plainly, but it nearly worked. Because I had been trained to trust my own shelf, and I had reached for that bottle without looking, the way you reach for a thing you have set down 100 times. I caught it on my tongue with the spoon already at the old woman's mouth. One more breath, and I would have killed the woman I'd come to save, and been hanged for it. And the only person who knew my true name would have died believing I'd done it. I poured the tincture into the fire. It burned green. Mistress Orla lived. I sat up 3 nights pulling her back, and on the 3rd night, grey with no sleep, I went to find the king, because Lady Ingrid had made a mistake. She thought she was poisoning an apprentice. She did not know she was waking up a woman who had spent 5 years learning exactly what poisons taste like, and why. If you have stayed with me this far, through the cord and the wolfsbane and the lady who smiles like a hard frost, stay a little longer. What I learned on that cliff is the part I have never told a living soul, And I find I would like, just once, to be heard while I tell it. If her voice is one you would keep company with on a long night, you know the small kindness the bell below is asking for. Now, the cliff, and the thing he finally said. I found him on the cliff path above the fortress, alone, which a king is never supposed to be. The wind came off the sea hard enough to lean on. He stood at the edge with his back to me and did not turn, and I understood he had heard me coming and chosen not to send me away. Someone put wolfsbane in my mistress's medicine, I said. No title. I had run out of them somewhere on the stairs. I know, he said. That stopped me. Lady Ingrid's hands are clever, he went on, still facing the water. Her father's house is cleverer. They have wanted the empty chair for a long time, and they have decided the surest way to it is to be useful to me, to find the woman I am looking for, or to make certain no one else can. He turned then. The grief was right there on the surface of him, no court between us to make him hide it. I let them search. It was the only way I could keep searching myself without my advisors calling it madness. I did not think they would start cutting away the people near me to do it. Why are you looking for her? I asked. I had not planned to. The wind took the words half out of my mouth, and I let it. He was quiet long enough that I thought he would not answer. Then, because I owe her a debt I can never pay, and because I am dying of having paid it. He said it the way you'd report weather. 5 years ago, my wolf chose his mate at the bonding fire. The same night, an hour before the rite, a man came to me out of the dark with a witch's mark on his tongue, and a message from the house that wanted me dead. The moment I completed the bond, the moment the cord was knotted and my mate was claimed before the pack, she would die of it. A curse laid in the cord itself. Bind her and bury her by the next moon. The sea kept moving. I do not think I did. So I cut it, he said, in front of everyone. I made them all believe I had found her wanting. Better the whole north think me cruel than let one of them suspect the cord was poisoned. Because if they knew it could be done, they would only do it again, to the next and the next. I cut the bond before it closed. I severed my own wolf from his mate to keep her alive. His jaw moved once. It should have killed her anyway. A rejected bond kills the weaker wolf. I have searched 5 years for a grave I could not find, because some nights I let myself believe she lived, and I am told that is the cruelest thing a man can do to himself. I had come up that cliff path full of a thing to say. I forgot all of it, everything I had carried for 5 years. The shame, the certainty that I had been weighed in front of the whole north and found to be nothing. The long cold work of building a woman out of the wreckage of a girl, all of it turned over in the air between us and landed facing the other way. He had not discarded me. He had stood in front of his entire kingdom and burned his own name to the ground to keep me breathing. A man who does not want you does not need a blade. He had needed the blade because he wanted me so much that nothing less than a public lie would do. My lord, I said, and my voice did the thing I had spent 5 years forbidding it. Why did you keep the cord? He looked at me, this stranger he had told everything to, this apprentice with a coastal look, and something crossed his face. Not recognition, not yet, but its shadow, the way you feel a name you cannot find. Because it is the only piece of her I was allowed to keep, he said. Now I have told a healer's apprentice what I have not told my own beta. You should go in, the wind is cold. I went in. I did not tell him. I want you to understand I had reasons. The curse was still in the cord, still waiting. Ingrid was still moving. He had built 5 years of careful lies to keep me alive, and I would not undo them in a gust of feeling on a cliff. But under the reasons was the smaller, truer thing, the one I am only admitting to you. I was afraid that if I said I am Marin, he would look at the woman I had become and find her wanting, and this time it would be real. So I did the coward's brave thing. I went to break the curse instead. It took me 11 days and Mistress Orla's whole library, and 3 burns on my left hand from holding salt and silver in the same fist. But I unpicked the working laid in that cord, the way you unpick a knot in the dark. By feel, by patience, by refusing to stop. A curse of that make has a spine to it. It does not want to be undone. On the worst night, the cold came up out of the silver and into my wrists, and I felt it reaching for my heart the way it had reached 5 years ago. The curse remembering me, recognizing the wolf it had been built to kill. I held on. I have always been better at holding on than anyone gave me credit for. By the last night, the cord lay quiet in my hands, harmless, only silver again. I had just made it safe to be loved by the king of the Iron Territories. That was, of course, the night Lady Ingrid chose to end me. She did it at the high feast, in the full hall, with the carved empty chair gleaming at the king's side, and every noble house of the north watching. She rose with her cup, and she smiled at me, where I stood against the wall with the other servants, and she said in a voice pitched to carry, "My Lord King, before we drink, a gift. I have found her, the woman you have sought for 5 years. She has been standing in your hall the whole while, pouring your physic and wearing another woman's name." The hall went the kind of silent that has weight. "The coastal apprentice," Ingrid said, turning, lovely and merciless, "is the girl from the bonding fire, the one you cast off. I wonder, my lord, when you put the same blade to the same cord a second time, will the whole north watch you do it again?" She knew. Of course she knew. Her house had laid the curse. She knew the only way to be rid of me forever was to make him claim me in the open, where the curse could close and finish what it was built to do. She was not exposing me. She was handing him the knife and daring him to be a coward twice. And either way I died, claimed by the curse, or cast off again in front of everyone, broken past surviving a second time. Halvar stood. I watched him understand it all at once. The apprentice, the voice, the woman his wolf had been pacing toward for a month. And I watched 5 years come down on him like a roof. "Marin," he said. My name. He had it now. The whole hall heard him give it to me. "My lord, the curse," his beta started, half out of his chair. "I know what the cord carries," Halvar said, and his eyes never left me. "I have carried the other half of it for 5 years. He came down off the dais. The court parted for him, because the court has always parted for him. He crossed the whole length of that hall to where I stood among the servants, and he stopped 1 pace away, 1 pace, when a king claiming his mate has every right to close it. And he held out his hand, palm up, the way you offer something to a creature that has been hurt and may not come. "They will tell you I rejected you," he said, low. Only the front of the hall close enough to hear, though every soul in it strained to. "I let them tell you that. I let you carry it for 5 years to keep you breathing. And there is no apology in any language that pays for those years. You owe me nothing. You never did. My wolf chose you before I had the wit to, and I have spent half a decade trying to catch up to him." His hand did not waver. "I am not asking you to take the bond. I am asking you to take my hand, here, so that everyone watching knows I would rather die claiming you than live having let you go twice." Lady Ingrid's smile had gone fixed. "The cord will kill her," she said, too quickly, and that was her mistake, because no one had said anything about the cord, and the whole hall heard a woman name the weapon before the wound. I looked at her. I did not raise my voice. I had learned, over 5 years, that the quiet thing cuts deeper than the loud one. "The cord is clean," I said. "I unpicked your grandmother's working 11 nights ago in a dead woman's library. You built it to kill a frightened girl. You should have come back to check whether she grew up." Then I took his hand. "I will tell you what the kiss was, because you have stayed with me this long and you have earned it. And then I will tell you no more about it, because some things are mine." He bent his head to me, and I felt the whole weight of 5 years lift off the both of us at once, like a held breath finally let go. Like a door I had been standing outside of for half a decade, swinging open onto a fire that had been kept lit the entire time I was gone. That is all. That is everything. The rest is ours. The cord, when the priest brought it, the same cut cord, my cord, mended now by my own burned hands, went around our joined wrists, and the old curse in it did not stir, because there was nothing left in it to stir. And Halvar of the Iron Territories knotted the bond he had severed 5 years before, in front of the same kingdom that had watched him cut it, and his wolf, when the bond closed, made a sound through me that I felt in the centre of myself. A warmth flooding up the thread that had been ragged and cold, so long I had forgotten it was meant to be anything else. It did not kill me. It welcomed me home. There was still cost. There is always cost. As the bond closed, the dregs of the broken curse made one last reach. Not for me this time, but for the cord itself, a cold trying to crawl back into the silver, and I felt it pull at the half-healed burns on my hand and bite down to the bone, the old magic refusing to die quietly. I closed my fist around the cord and held it shut, frost climbing my wrist, and I did not let go until the cold gave up and went out of the silver for good. Blood from the burns made a dark line down my palm. I had bled worse for less. I had bled, once, for nothing at all on a ceremony floor. This time I bled and got to keep the thing I bled for. Lady Ingrid did not leave the hall a free woman. She had named the curse aloud in front of every house in the north, and there is no walking that back. Her father's alliance dissolved before the feast was cleared. The king's justice was cold and complete, and I will not waste your time on it, except to say that the carved, empty chair beside the throne stopped being empty, and the woman who had wanted it spent the rest of her days a great deal farther from a throne than she had planned. Mistress Orla recovered enough to scold me for the state of my hands. She died the following spring, old and warm in her bed, having lived precisely long enough to see me wear the title she'd always said I was too stubborn to refuse. The whisper did not stop all at once. A king who shames a woman before the North and crowns her 5 years later does not simply hand the court a tidy ending. There were houses that muttered, rivals who counted the cost of the lost alliance and wondered if the king had gone soft. Old wolves who could not decide whether they had watched a love story or a humiliation. Halvar let them mutter. He had spent 5 years caring what the North believed about him, and had nothing left over to spend on it now. Let them say I went soft, he told me once, watching the muttering houses from the high window. I went soft the night my wolf chose a coastal nobody. I have only just stopped pretending otherwise. A year on, now, and I am writing this from the library that became mine when Mistress Orla's became no one's. The chair beside the throne has my weight worn into it. The cord hangs on the wall where the cut used to show and does not anymore. I mended it well. You would have to know exactly where to look. He still does not say my name the way other people say names. He says it like a thing he is allowed to keep. I have stopped correcting him to Wren. I had to be Wren to come home, but I do not have to be her anymore. And there is a particular freedom in being called by your own name in your own house, by a man who burned his reputation to keep you alive enough to hear it. He came in a moment ago, while I was writing this, and set a cup of something down at my elbow too carefully, the way he does, and looked at the page, and did not ask what it was, and left the door open behind him when he went, the way he always does now. So I will know I can follow whenever I please. I told you he rejected me the first time. I told you he was about to do it again. I was wrong about the second one. It turns out the most powerful wolf alive would sooner cut a cord and burn his own name to ash than let me go. And the only thing that ever frightened him more than losing me was being seen wanting me this badly in front of his entire kingdom. He's seen wanting me now. The whole North knows it. He doesn't seem to mind anymore. So tell me, did you see it coming? The cliff and the cord and the second cut that never came? Or did he fool you the way he fooled me all those years, into thinking the blade meant the opposite of what it meant? Stay a while in the comments and tell me where you're listening from tonight. I read them all, by candlelight, in the library that's mine now. And if you want to know whose story comes next out of the Iron Territories, you know where the bell is. Ring it, and stay with me. There's always another door left open.